The siege of Vardrex. The sky above Vardrex Prime burned with falling embers. The Tazari fleet had been bombarding the city for 3 days straight, and the once proud spires of the capital now jutted like broken teeth from a smoking plane. Inside the command bunker beneath the governor's palace, Captain Elias Rourke watched red warning glyphs scroll across the holomap. Every few seconds, another human position blinked out. South wall gone, Lieutenant Maris reported, voice tight with exhaustion. Northwestern batteries are firing their last cells. If we don't pull back, Rourke cut him off, eyes still locked on the glowing map. His jaw was stubbled, his uniform scorched in patches from a near miss earlier in the day. We hold. We fight. Around the bunker, staff officers and civilian aides exchanged glances. Rourke's reputation preceded him. He wasn't the sort to abandon ground, no matter the odds. But even they could see the writing on the wall. The Tazari Dominion, ruthless conquerors of a dozen worlds, had landed their ground armies and were advancing sector by sector. No help was coming from the core systems. Vardrex was alone. The bunker door hissed open and Governor Saran entered, his face pale and drawn. "Captain Rourke," he said, lowering his voice, "we have opened negotiations with the Dominion. They are offering leniency if we surrender immediately." Rourke turned then, slow and deliberate, as if Saran had just spat in his face. "Leniency?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Do you know what Admiral Vesker did on Duroc Station? He accepted their surrender and then spaced every man, woman, and child. Leniency is a lie they tell you while they sharpen the knife." The governor flinched, but Rourke's officers straightened, grim smiles flickering. They had heard the stories too. Vesker, the butcher of Duroc. Vesker, whose fleets hung planets as trophies. "We have 2 choices," Rourke said, stepping closer to the holomap. He pointed at a glowing cluster deep in enemy territory. "Their command node. Vesker is on the surface directing this siege personally. We cut off the head, the body flails." Maris frowned. "That's suicide, sir." "Not if we're clever," Rourke replied. "Not if we're willing to bleed a little." He laid out the plan quickly, his voice gaining a rough momentum. A small strike team, fast, unpredictable, and human, would infiltrate through the old sewer grids, bypassing the main lines. They'd hit the alien command dome before the next dawn cycle. Rourke himself would lead them. Saran sputtered, "You can't possibly think." "I don't think, Governor." Rourke's stare pinned him to the spot. "I know. If we sit here and wait, they'll slaughter us. If we strike, we might just turn the tide." Outside, a distant boom shook dust from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Someone cursed softly. Rourke turned to his chosen squad, a handful of scarred veterans and demolition experts. No one argued. They all knew the odds. "Gear up," Rourke ordered. "We move in 20 minutes." Night had fallen by the time they reached the shattered streets. The air stank of burned metal and ozone. Fires smoldered in the husks of armored vehicles. They moved in silence, rifles ready, their boots crunching over rubble. Above them, alien drones hummed by, unaware of the shadows below. As they reached the sewer access, Maris glanced at Rourke. "Sir, if we pull this off, you know what it means?" Rourke allowed himself a grim smile. "It means the bastards learn something they've never learned before." "What's that?" "That humans don't ask for mercy," Rourke said, dropping into the darkness below. "We demand respect." The team followed, vanishing into the stench and gloom. Behind them, the city groaned under another volley of plasma fire. Ahead, somewhere beyond the tunnels, the heart of the Dominion waited, pulsing, arrogant, unafraid. Not for long. Rourke checked his knife, feeling the weight of steel in his hand. He thought of Duroc Station, of the screams he'd never forget. Then he pictured Admiral Vesker, secure in his command seat, convinced humans were weak. Rourke's lips tightened into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Let's go cut off a head," he whispered, and the darkness swallowed them whole. Into the beast's den. The stench of old water and burned circuitry filled the sewer tunnels. Rourke's squad moved single file, rifles angled low, helmet lamps dimmed to narrow slits of light. Above them, Faint tremors rolled through the concrete as artillery pounded the city. The Dominion thought their victory was inevitable. They had no idea a knife was sliding toward their throat. "Movement 200 meters ahead," whispered Corporal Lynn over comms. Her voice was barely audible through static. "Heat signatures." "Patrol." Rourke crouched, studying the feed on his wrist display. 2 Tazari infantry shapes, sweeping with sensor spears. He motioned for silence, then gestured to flank positions. The squad split, melting into alcoves. The aliens' footfalls echoed in the tunnel, heavy and rhythmic, claws clicking against the stone. The first alien rounded the corner and never saw Rourke's blade. A swift thrust under the jaw plate silenced it with only a gurgle. Maris caught the body before it hit the ground. The second alien spun, raising its weapon, but Lynn's suppressed rifle cracked once. The shot punched through the alien's ocular cluster, dropping it like a puppet with cut strings. Rourke knelt beside the corpse, stripping a key node from its belt. "Tazari patrol, routes won't update now. We got an open path." He tossed the node into his pack. "Move." They pushed deeper, past junctions marked with faded human maintenance codes. Water dripped steadily, masking their steps. Rourke's mind worked as they moved, replaying old reports on Dominion structures. The command dome would be heavily shielded, but its underside had always been a vulnerability. If the sewer system led to a sublevel, they had a chance. Hours passed. Above, the war raged on, distant yet constant. Finally, Lynn raised a fist, halting the squad. A faint glow shimmered ahead, a maintenance grate opening into a cavernous chamber. They edged forward and peered through. The Dominion command dome sprawled before them, a biomechanical marvel grown rather than built. Its walls pulsed with faint bioluminescence, veins of energy snaking toward the central spire where holographic glyphs floated like ghosts. Alien technicians moved in and out, unaware of the humans watching from below. Maris whistled softly. "Hell of a place." "Quiet," Rourke hissed. He studied the layout. Guards clustered near the central dais, too many for a direct approach. But to the left, he spotted a supply alcove with minimal traffic. That would be their entry point. He slung his rifle and pulled a compact explosive from his vest. "We make a hole, slide through before they notice." "Lynn, cover me." Minutes later, the shaped charge blew inward with a muted thump, dust billowing as Rourke and his team scrambled through the breach. The aliens inside barely had time to turn before they were down, throats slit, bodies shoved aside. The humans pressed against the shadowed wall, scanning for alarms. "None yet." "Time to hunt," Rourke whispered. They advanced, weaving between organic support structures, weapons ready. The air was warmer here, filled with the hum of alien machines. Rourke's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with focus. Somewhere in this maze, Admiral Vesker was directing the slaughter of his people. A sudden metallic roar split the chamber. A towering Tazari guard lumbered from a side corridor, plasma halberd glowing. Maris fired, but the shot ricocheted off armor. The alien lunged. Rourke ducked under the swing and jammed his combat knife between overlapping plates. Black ichor spurted. He twisted, ripping free, and the guard toppled with a crash that echoed through the dome. Shouts erupted in the alien tongue. More guards converged. Lynn dropped two with precise shots. Maris hurled a flash grenade, buying them seconds. Rourke sprinted ahead, heart hammering, and there, through an arch of living metal, was the inner sanctum. Admiral Vesker loomed on a raised platform, forearms manipulating glowing consoles, mandibles clicking as he barked orders. His armor gleamed with engraved kills, his crimson cloak trailing across the floor. When his eyes locked on Rourke, time seemed to slow. "You." Vesker rasped through a translator node. "A human insect dares my hall?" Rourke raised his rifle and fired. The Admiral moved faster than expected, deflecting the burst with a clawed gauntlet. A plasma bolt streaked past Rourke's head, searing air. The chamber erupted in chaos, guards rushing, humans firing, grenades flashing. Rourke charged through it all, blade drawn, his squad covering his flanks. Vesker swung a war scepter, catching Rourke's shoulder and spinning him to the ground. Pain flared white, but he rolled, came up under the alien's guard, and drove his knife into a joint seam. Vesker roared, backhanding him across the platform. Dazed, Rourke spat blood and surged up again. Around him, humans fought desperately, buying him moments. He ducked another swing, slashed again, and this time the blade found a vital conduit. Sparks and black blood erupted. Vesker reeled. Rourke wrenched free, grabbed a discarded Tazari blade, and in a single, brutal motion, severed the Admiral's head. The dome went silent for one stunned heartbeat. Rourke lifted the trophy high, eyes burning. "Tell your Dominion," he growled. "Humans don't kneel." Blaster fire erupted anew as the squad began their fighting retreat, carrying the grisly proof of their victory back into the tunnels. The table of fire. Dawn bled red across the shattered skyline of Vardrex Prime as Rourke's strike team emerged from the sewers. Their armor was scorched, their eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but the Sac Maris carried swung with undeniable weight. Behind them, the command dome burned, a black wound in the distance where alien shouts still echoed. Soldiers at the perimeter froze as the squad staggered through rubble-strewn streets. "Captain, sir, did you—" one stammered. Rourke didn't answer. He strode to the central bunker, boots crunching over debris, until the heavy doors hissed open. Inside, the War Council had gathered, Governor Saran, field officers, comms techs, arguing in hushed, hopeless tones. They fell silent when they saw Rourke, grim-faced and blood-smeared. Without a word, Rourke swung the sack onto the steel conference table. The head of Admiral Vesker rolled out, mandibles frozen mid-snarl, black ichors still dripping. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone swore softly. Even Saran staggered back, face ashen. "Terms," Rourke said, his voice low and edged like a blade. "Now we ask for terms." The silence shattered as comms techs scrambled to open channels. Saran found his voice. "Captain, they'll retaliate. They'll listen," Rourke cut in. His gaze was hard enough to make the governor look away. "You want surrender? You talk from weakness. You want survival? You talk from strength." The tactical officer nodded, dawning in his eyes. Broadcasting on all open frequencies, he reported, fingers flying over controls. The holoscreen flickered, static clearing to reveal the Tazari fleet command chamber. Alien officers hissed and chittered, their tones sharp with confusion. One of them, a high-ranked negotiator by the ceremonial crest on its shoulders, leaned toward the feed. "Who speaks for the dying mammals of Vardrex?" Rourke stepped forward, gripping the head by a spiny crest. He slammed it onto the table with a wet, final thud. The alien's mandibles twitched once under the lights before falling still. "This man," Rourke said evenly, "killed your admiral." The negotiator froze, its black eyes narrowing. Behind it, others hissed in alarm, exchanging rapid speech. Finally, the negotiator rasped, "You lie." Rourke held the severed head up to the camera, turning it so the unmistakable sigils on the admiral's helm glimmered. "You know his face. You know his rank." His voice lowered to a growl. "And you know I wouldn't be speaking to you if I hadn't walked through your finest warriors to take it." The alien's mandibles clicked in a rhythm that might have been unease. "Human, this is not how war is. This is exactly how war is." Rourke cut him off. "You butchered our colonies, burned our people alive. You thought we'd beg. Instead, we bring you your master's head, and we ask you, very politely." He leaned closer to the feed, his face shadowed and grim. "Do we talk peace, or do we keep killing?" The council chamber on the other side erupted in overlapping voices. Saran whispered, shaken, "Captain, what if they choose revenge?" Rourke didn't take his eyes off the screen. "Then they'll learn what happens when you corner humans." A low hum of static filled the room as the Tazari negotiator conferred with others off-screen. Minutes stretched. Rourke stood motionless, blood drying on his knuckles, the Admiral's head still gleaming on the table under harsh light. Finally, the alien returned. "You will remain in your bunker. We will send an envoy to discuss." Rourke allowed himself the faintest smile. "Now you're speaking my language." The feed cut. Around the table, his squad exchanged tired grins. Maris leaned back, exhaling hard. Sir, you really did it. Not yet, Rourke said, but there was iron satisfaction in his tone. We've made them blink. That's enough for today. He looked down at the head, at the dark blood congealing in the grooves of the table. Outside, the artillery had fallen eerily silent. For the first time in days, the air in the bunker didn't feel suffocating. Get some rest, Rourke ordered. Tomorrow we negotiate. Tonight, we remind ourselves why we're still here. As his squad filed out, Saran lingered, shaking his head in disbelief. I thought we were finished. You were, Rourke said, lighting a battered old cigar. Smoke curled in the dim light. But humans have a nasty habit of rewriting endings. The governor left, still stunned. Alone, Rourke stared at the head one last time before turning to the city map. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, victory didn't seem impossible. The terms written in blood. The Tazari envoy ship descended at midday, its black hull gleaming with shifting glyphs as it settled in the blasted courtyard outside the bunker. Human snipers watched from the shattered rooftops, fingers tight on triggers. Smoke still curled from ruined buildings, and the air reeked of scorched earth, but for the first time in days, the guns were quiet. Inside the command hall, Rourke waited at the same table where Admiral Vesker's head still rested. No one had moved it. The alien's mandibles had stiffened, its eyes glazed, but it remained a trophy and a warning. Governor Saran paced nervously. Captain, are you certain this is wise? They could be planning an assassination. They might, Rourke said without looking up. He was sharpening his combat knife slowly, the rasp of steel on stone filling the tense silence. But they won't. They've lost their admiral, their command dome, and half their nerve. They came to talk because they're scared. A deep mechanical hiss announced the opening of the outer doors. 4 Tazari soldiers entered first, tall and insectal in their black armor, their weapons slung but not lowered. Behind them glided the envoy, a slender alien draped in ceremonial silks, mandibles clicking softly as its translator Node hummed to life. Rourke remained seated, boots propped on the edge of the table. Envoy, he said calmly. Glad you survived the trip. The alien's eyes darted to the head on the table. Its shoulders stiffened. You desecrate one of our greatest warriors. No, Rourke replied, leaning forward. I honor him by making him useful for once. Now, let's talk about your withdrawal. The envoy's claws flexed. The Dominion does not bow to barbarians. Rourke's hand slammed down on the table, making the head jolt and roll slightly. The alien guards tensed, but Rourke didn't move. His voice dropped to a low, deliberate growl. Listen carefully. You have 2 choices. 1, you pull your forces out of Vardrex and sign a non-aggression accord. 2, we keep killing every last one of you until this planet is paved with your corpses. The envoy hissed. You dare. Yes, Rourke cut in, eyes hard as steel. I do. Silence. The alien soldiers shifted uneasily. Outside, distant thunder rolled through the clouds. Artillery somewhere still finding its mark. Rourke waited, letting the weight of the moment settle, letting the envoy see that he would not flinch. You don't understand humans, Rourke said softly. You think we're fragile because we bleed easy, but we bleed and keep fighting. You think we're weak because we love our worlds, but we love them enough to burn yours down before we let you take them. The envoy's mandibles twitched rapidly, the translator struggling to keep up. Your people would not survive another siege. Maybe not, Rourke said, his voice calm now, almost conversational. But you won't survive another admiral's death. And if you think Vesker was a nightmare, wait until you meet the commanders who trained him. A long pause. Finally, the envoy looked down, the silks on its shoulders trembling. The Dominion will consider terms. Not consider, Rourke corrected. He slid a datapad across the table. Sign. Withdraw your ships from orbit. Leave our supply lines untouched. And when you go back to whatever pit spawned you, tell them what happened here. Tell them humans don't kneel. The alien stared at him for a long moment, then extended a clawed digit and scrawled its sigil across the datapad. It is done, the envoy rasped. Rourke nodded. Then get off my planet. The envoy turned sharply and left, its guards falling into step. Moments later, the alien shuttle lifted off, vanishing into the sky. Minutes after that, the fleet in orbit began to peel away, their formations breaking, their engines flaring as they jumped to faster-than-light retreat. Cheers erupted across the bunker. Officers embraced, soldiers clapped each other on the back. Maris grinned, eyes bright with disbelief. "Sir, they're really leaving." Rourke looked out the doorway at the retreating streaks of light. "For now," he said, though there was a note of satisfaction in his voice. He stood, finally sweeping Vesker's head into a containment bag. "Get the wounded treated. Start rebuilding. We'll need these walls stronger next time." Governor Saran approached, still pale, but smiling shakily. "Captain, you've done the impossible." Rourke lit his cigar, the smoke curling lazily toward the cracked ceiling. "Impossible's just a word aliens use when they talk about humans," he said. He looked out over the battered city and allowed himself a rare smile. "Now let them tell stories about today." Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting light over ruined streets and cheering soldiers. For the first time in weeks, Vardrex Prime belonged to its people again.